beyond belief. So, just to clarify, I hate Halloween. Now, I don't resent other people enjoying it. I'm not a total Grinch like that. But every year when all those decorations start going up and the big bags of fun-sized candies start appearing in the stores, I'm reminded of something I've tried a long time to forget. I used to live in an apartment in the city, and I'd spend a lot of my time sitting at my computer whenever I wasn't at work or at the gym. My desk was right next to a window on my left, and sometimes I'd find myself looking out of it and watching the city just go by. I wasn't a creep about it. I didn't stare at anybody or anything. It was more like people watching, wondering where folks have been, where they're going, and what kind of lives they lead. I saw people walking around during the holidays in their hats and coats, carrying gifts or trays of covered food. I saw all the new college kids moving in around September, wheeling office chairs along the sidewalk with bags slung over their shoulders. And then, around Halloween, depending on which day it fell on, I'd see costume kids walking the streets and collecting candy and admiring each other's costumes. And despite what I said earlier about hating the holiday, I actually used to really dig it. I'd carve one of those miniature pumpkins to put on my windowsill and hang a small happy Halloween banner above it. I'd put a bowl of candy down near the front door as well, something for the kids to help themselves too. And it quickly became one of my favorite times of the year. And I'd sometimes find myself window watching for that first hour after dark, standing there with a beer or a cup of coffee and just checking out what the costumes the kids were wearing that year. Now, back in 1989, it was a Batman year in a big way. The movie had just come out that summer, so I knew that I was going to see a lot of Bruce Waynes walking around down there. But the night itself was beyond anything I imagined. There was like an entire army of little Batmans out there, only occasionally broken up by the odd Nicholson-era Joker with a purple blazer and green hair. You got yourself your usual suspects, your vampires, your zombies, your werewolves. But that year, the Batman dominated. So maybe around 7 in the evening, I was done window watching and I was back at my desk doing a little work prep. And since it was all prep, sometimes I'd done a million times, I found it all very boring. And then, as my eyes started to wander, I caught sight of a group of trick-or-treaters walking past my window. And out of habit, I turned to check out their costumes and was surprised to see a group of 4 kids, maybe 12, and without a single Batman among them. There was an Indiana Jones, a pretty good one too. But the one that really caught my attention was the kid dressed as John Rambo, complete with a black tank top and red headband. I was thinking, how the hell did a kid manage to catch a total agoraphost? But then I remember my own 12-year-old self moving mountains just to get my hands on a copy of that Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And then right as I'm reminiscing about watching Leatherface going absolutely bat poop crazy at the end of the movie, I see this dark gray van pull up next to the kids. I couldn't see the driver, but I saw the kids stop and look over towards the window where he was obviously talking to them. Seconds later, the driver got out of his seat, slammed the door closed, and walked around to the double doors at the back. The kids followed him, each of them looking curious as the guy kind of yapped away like he was trying to sell them something. And he looked normal, I guess. Totally unremarkable. But as he's standing there talking to them and pointing towards the rear of his van, I get the sudden and terrible feeling that something awful was about to happen. I guess it was because of how cartoonishly suspicious it looked. Like it legitimately looked like a scene from some cheesy after-school special, which has the theme Stranger Danger. But I guess that's what also gave me pause to look. I didn't know who that guy was, but those kids might. And it was entirely possible that he was one of their dads or uncles or something there to actually get them after trick-or-treating. There were also 4 kids and only one of him, so unless he was some kind of ninja, there was no way that he was throwing all 4 into the back of that van. And it was unlikely he was dumb enough to even try. It was also right at the side of a normally busy road with apartments and houses on either side, and with the occasional car driving past too. So unless this guy was a complete maniac, I couldn't see him trying to abduct 4 kids in such a busy, well-lit place. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize what I was seeing, no matter how much I told myself I was being paranoid or a scaredy cat, I couldn't help but shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I managed to talk myself down a little, mentally at least. But when the guy opened up the rear of his van and looked like he was showing something to those kids, I actually turned in my chair and picked up my desk phone, ready to call 911. And there was still that voice in my head saying, "He's not going to grab one of them. He can't. You're just being paranoid." And part of me was totally convinced that he was going to drive off without any sort of incident. And I was going to turn back to my chair feeling like an idiot. But there was this other competing voice too. One that said, "Get ready to make a note of that license plate." And then, as suspected, the unthinkable happened. As the kid in the front stepped forward, like he was almost trying to get a closer look at whatever was in the back of that van, the guy pounced in what seemed like one fluid motion. The man picked the kid up off of his feet and then dragged him into the van. The kid's 3 friends ran off, just turned tails and ran. And as I hit 911 and brought my phone to my ear, I tried to get an angle so I could see the van's license plate. It took off so fast I wasn't able to read all of it, but I told the dispatcher everything that I just seen and was able to describe the guy in his van in quite a bit of detail. The dispatcher woman said that she had officers en route and that I could relax because the police would do everything they could. And that calmed me down a little at the time, but I guess the clue was right there in front of me. Because if the cops really did do everything they could, it wasn't nearly enough. The first missing persons poster went up just a couple of days later, and every single time I saw one, it was agony. The picture they used of the kid was obviously one from happier times, and thinking that he might never be that happy again just about killed me because I saw the moment that changed his life forever. Now, I don't know if he was ever found. I hope he was, but part of me thinks that he stayed missing and was eventually declared dead. I later read that in America, a kid goes missing every 40 seconds and that almost 500,000 are reported missing every year. Most of them are returned home to their parents after they wandered off and got lost. But a large percentage of those that go missing are never reunited with their family. And I hope it wasn't the case, but sometimes I think that that kid was one of them. And on top of messing up my one chance to keep him safe, I got a front row seat to see pure evil leave its mark. Not just on me, but on the whole world. Look, Halloween is always a big deal at our college, especially my senior year. Me and my buddies, Liam and Toby, had zero plans for costumes until like 2 hours before the party. This huge frat was throwing a massive bash, and we knew it was gonna be lit. We were sitting in my messy dorm room, stressing, when Liam suddenly remembered that seasonal pop-up costume shop downtown that was open late. So we shotgunned a quick energy drink and headed out around 8 p.m. The shop was a total zoo, packed with people doing the same thing as us. We're scrambling through the racks, trying to find something cheap and easy. Liam grabbed a firefighter outfit, Toby went with a pirate, and I found this basic black and white striped convict uniform. We get to the cashier, and this is where things started getting a little weird. The guy at the register, he was tall, really skinny, and looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He had this tight, nervous energy. As he was ringing up the costumes, he kept staring at the tags, but his eyes kept flicking up to look at us. He asked, "You guys going to the party near the river? The big Gamma Row house?" We froze. We hadn't told anyone where we were going, and it wasn't even the closest frat house to the store. Liam just awkwardly chuckled and said, maybe. But the guy wouldn't drop it. He started getting specific. I was thinking about dropping by that one myself. Heard they're shutting down the street, and the cops don't even patrol that neighborhood on Halloween night. He rang up my convict costume last. As he handed me the bag, he looked right at me and said, "Clear as day, that convict costume really suits you, man." Like, really suits you. It was just a creepy thing to say. We grabbed our stuff and got the heck out of there. We get to the party around 10 p.m. It was exactly what we expected: loud music, flashing lights, hundreds of people. We're chilling by the keg, totally trying to forget about the weird cashier. But then, about an hour in, I see him, standing across the room, near the back stairs. It was the cashier, the skinny, pale guy. He wasn't in uniform. He was wearing a cheap, oversized black and white striped convict costume, identical to mine. I nudged Liam and whispered, "Dude, that's the cashier, wearing my costume." Liam looked over, and the guy was just staring blankly, occasionally taking a sip from a red cup. It didn't look like he was talking to anyone. He just looked out of place and super intense. I mean, maybe he lived nearby and saw the costumes. But the way he said my costume suited me suddenly felt like a threat. We started keeping our distance, sticking together in the middle of the crowd. I had to hit the restroom, which was upstairs. As I'm heading up, I see the cashier guy leaning on the wall outside the bathroom door. He gave me this little unsettling smile as I passed. When I was washing my hands, the bathroom door creaked open and he stepped in. He didn't use the urinal. He just stood by the sink, blocking the door, and didn't say anything for like 5 seconds. Then he just said, super low, "Figured I'd come say hi. Twinsies." I didn't reply. I just shoved past him and practically sprinted down the stairs. I found Liam and Toby and told them we were leaving right now. They saw the look on my face and didn't argue. We cut through the house and bolted out the front door. We could hear the party noise fading behind us as we walked fast down the street toward where we parked. We got in the car, and I floored it. We were driving down a dark, empty stretch of road when Liam yelled, "Dude, look." In my rear view mirror, a single set of headlights had turned onto the street behind us, maybe 3 blocks back. I took 3 quick random turns hoping to lose them, but they matched every single one. That convict guy was following us. We didn't get a good look, but the car was a beat-up, dark sedan, the kind of cheap car a guy working at a pop-up shop would drive. I finally lost him by speeding through a major intersection, just as the light turned red. We didn't go back to the dorm. We stayed at Toby's place on the other side of campus. I called the costume shop the next day, but the number was already disconnected. The pop-up was gone. I have no idea if that guy knew my name, or if he just followed me home from the party, or what he could have possibly wanted. I just try not to think about what would have happened if he had actually managed to unlock that bathroom door. It was Halloween 2021, and I was doing this sweet gig house visiting for my aunt and uncle. They live in this huge, fancy house up on a winding road, the kind of neighborhood where the houses are spaced super far apart. They were out of town for a week, and I was basically getting paid to just watch their 2 giant golden retrievers, Gus and Bailey. It was Monday, and since the neighborhood was so spread out, I figured we wouldn't get many trick-or-treaters. My only job was handing out the candy my aunt had bought, literally a massive ceramic bowl full of full-size chocolate bars. I knew I'd be the one eating the leftovers. I spent the afternoon chilling, playing with the dogs, and catching up on a bunch of podcasts. The dogs, bless their hearts, are total couch potatoes, but they went ballistic every single time the doorbell rang. From 4:30 p.m. to maybe 7 p.m., we had about 10 kids total, mostly just the neighbor's loyal crew. Things died down hard around 7:30 p.m. I figured that was it since it was a weeknight. I threw the bowl of candy on the kitchen counter, made myself a bowl of mac and cheese, and went up to the main sitting room to watch a movie. I was maybe 45 minutes into the flick when Gus and Bailey suddenly snapped their heads up. The doorbell chimed a short, sharp ring. I looked at my phone. It was almost 9:45 p.m., way past the cutoff time for this fancy neighborhood. I told the dogs to shush, which didn't help, and walked downstairs to the front door. Through the sidelight next to the door, I saw a person standing on the porch. He was massive, way taller than the doorframe, and completely covered up. He was wearing this weird dark costume, like a long, bulky Grim Reaper robe, but with no mask, just a black hood pulled tight. He held a brown paper bag that looked almost empty. I cracked the door open only to the safety chain. "Sorry," I said quickly through the gap. "We're all out of candy." "The bowl is empty." It was a total lie, but I didn't want to open the door to this guy. He didn't speak. He just slowly lifted his hand and pointed a huge, gloved finger at the porch light, and then back at me. He was telling me that since the light was on, I was supposed to be giving out treats. I immediately felt sick. I yanked the door shut, slid the deadbolt, and stood there, heart hammering. I waited, listening for footsteps. Nothing. Then the doorbell rang again. 2 short, demanding rings. Gus and Bailey went into full protective bark mode. I grabbed their collars and led them quickly upstairs, turning off the main floor lights as I went. My thought process was, if I turn the lights off, maybe he'll think I just ran upstairs and hid. I shoved the dogs into one of the empty guest rooms and shut the door tight to muffle their barking. I stood at the top of the stairs, holding my breath. I texted my aunt's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who was like a mile away, saying a weird, big guy was outside. I didn't get a reply. Then I heard a loud metallic clank from the front of the house, near the enclosed porch. It sounded like the decorative metal railing had been yanked hard, or maybe something hitting the big bay window. He wasn't just standing there anymore. I knew I had to call someone. I called my brother Mike back in the city. He answered right away, laughing about a party he was at. I whispered, "Mike, listen to me. There's a guy trying to get in. He's massive, dressed like a Reaper." Mike was just like, "Chill out, sis. It's Halloween. Probably some drunk idiot from the party down the hill. Just ignore him. He'll get bored. Don't be such a scaredy cat." He rushed me off the phone, and I was left alone, totally furious and terrified. I went back into the guest room, trying to calm the dogs and pretend Mike was right. I sat on the bed, my adrenaline finally starting to drop. But then, Bailey, who had been sitting by the window overlooking the large backyard deck, started this low, guttural growl I'd never heard from her. I looked where she was staring. The big backyard floodlight was off, but the moon was bright. I crept over and slowly pushed the blackout curtain aside. He was there, the massive figure in the dark robe. He was standing on the back deck roof, which connects to the second-story balcony right outside this guest room. He must have used the pool shed roof or the huge trellis. He was looking right at the window. As I stared, he raised his huge hand and gave a little, slow wave. I totally lost it. I grabbed my phone, screamed at the dogs, and ran into the master bathroom, locking the door and calling 911. The police came in about 15 minutes and they checked everything. They found one of the small backyard tables tilted over against the house, like someone had used it as a step. But that was it. No sign of the Reaper guy. To this day, I have no idea if that was some sick, elaborate prank meant to terrorize the house there, or if he was planning something way worse.